Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the Lost Portrait of Betrayal, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready, because nothing in Whispers in the Fog is ever what it seems. On a night drenched in shadows and the ominous patter of rain against the window panes, the piercing scream of Eleanor Hastings shattered the eerie stillness of Grimwood Manor, echoing through the cavernous halls like a restless spirit seeking vengeance. The flickering candlelight barely illuminated the figure sprawled on the marble floor, a crimson pool spreading beneath the lifeless body of Lord Beaumont, his expression frozen in horror. In that instant, mere inches from the scene, a figure enveloped in a tailored coat, Hercule Poirot, stood, motionless, his impeccable demeanor contrasting sharply with the chaos enveloping him. The storm outside raged ferociously, as if nature itself were in tumult over the deeds committed within the manor's walls. Poirot had arrived only that evening, summoned under the pretense of attending a grand dinner party. Little did he know that he would instead find himself at the heart of a murder investigation. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself, his bright spectacles glinting in the candlelight as he assessed the scene. The guests, restless and terrified, congregated in the large drawing room, their faces pale, eyes wide with shock and suspicion. Miss Eleanor Hastings, the host's spirited niece, with her teary eyes and trembling hands, had been the first to discover the body. Her breath came in quick gasps as she recounted the events of the evening to Inspector Hawthorne, a stout man with a furrowed brow, who seemed much too eager to restore order. I went to fetch him for dinner, and there he was, like a fallen king," she stammered, her voice quaking as she clutched a silk handkerchief embroidered with a crimson H. Poirot's. Keen eyes caught the minute detail of the handkerchief, so similarly colored to the blood staining the floor, and the way her voice cracked, not merely from fear, but perhaps from withheld emotion. Nearby, Frederick Harrow, an old friend of Lord Beaumont, leaned against the mantelpiece, a nervous smile tugging at his lips, though it did little to calm his darting eyes. "I cannot believe this is happening. Must we stay here with a murderer among us?" He laughed, a thin, almost erratic sound that sent shivers through the room. And then there was Agatha Smith, the housekeeper, a woman whose demeanor exuded an air of both loyalty and intrigue. She stood slightly apart from the group, arms crossed tightly against her chest, her dark hair afrizz against the flickering light. The tension between her and the others crackled as Poirot observed her quirking demeanor alongside Eleanor, as if trapped between loyalty to the fallen lord and her own hidden grievances. As the minutes dragged on, Poirot felt the weight of the situation settle within his chest. He approached the group, his presence commanding despite the surrounding chaos. "Mes amis," he began, his voice smooth and collected, "I must ask you to remain calm. I require your cooperation. The truth, it is elusive, yet it can be coaxed forth like a shy bird from its hiding place." The guests exchanged wary glances, each observing the other with new trepidation. "Do you not see?" Poirot continued, capturing their attention. "In our midst lies a murderer, a person whose heart beats in time with the ticking of this very clock." His eyes narrowed as they flitted from Eleanor's quivering lips to Frederick's forced laughter, then finally to Agatha's resolute frown. As the night wore on, Poirot began gathering clues while the rain lashed against the windows, each droplet a new secret begging to be revealed. He caught Agatha botching the details of Lord Beaumont's last weeks. She hinted at debts but quickly backtracked, her unease palpable. Frederick was far too interested in the will that Lord Beaumont had supposedly drafted, a will that would leave Eleanor the vast estate and strip away his own claim to a financial legacy he had grown reliant upon. And then there was Miss Hastings, whose emotional turmoil seemed ripe with untold secrets. She'd been unusually close to her uncle, and Poirot couldn't help but wonder if her coherent story concealed an explosive truth, something she begged to hide amidst the chaos. "Tell me, Madame Hastings," he inquired gently. Was there anything amiss before the dinner? Eleanor stared wide-eyed, her facade of innocence momentarily cracking. No, it was just an ordinary dinner, she stammered. But Poirot noted the way she clutched at the edges of her dress, a sign of distress. With the parlor illuminated by the flickering candles and the storm raging beyond, Poirot continued to unravel the tangled web. The tension heightened as he exposed red herrings. A family heirloom was missing, coins found in Frederick's room, each clue leading him further from certainty. The night pressed on, each tick of the clock heightening the dread that hung over Grimwood Manor, suspicions growing with every passing moment. Hours later, as the storm grew more violent, Poirot called the guests to gather once more. It is time, he proclaimed, his voice resolute, shaking the very walls with a calm authority. The parlor fell silent, all eyes upon him. The truth about Lord Beaumont's demise is far murkier than mere fortune or spite, my dear friends. It appears that many of you sought refuge in deceit tonight, but the truth cannot be buried eternally. With bated breath, Poirot revealed the final twist. The evidence pointed towards betrayal wrapped in familial care. The missing heirloom had been a coded message filled with Timothy Beaumont's last breaths, a clue about Eleanor's ambition to secure the manor. Frederick, under the guise of jest, had attempted to frame the staunch loyalty of Agatha, revealing his desperation to claw back from the brink of bankruptcy. But the heart of darkness lay not where he had expected. Deep within Eleanor, she had indeed killed her uncle, but not in the ambush of greed. The revelation struck like a bolt of lightning, out of love cloaked in rage over a forbidden relationship. The tears she shed were real, but they masked a violent defense against a destiny she could no longer bear. As Poirot observed their faces contorted in shock, he couldn't help but deliver his final, haunting words. We are only as free as our secrets allow, yet beware, for uncontained emotions breed the most grievous of shadows. The storm raged on outside, but the darkness within Grimwood Manor had finally been laid bare, and the mystery was nothing less than a tragedy. Hercule woven from threads of love, tragedy, and despair. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. The clock struck midnight with a resonant chime that ricocheted through the dimly lit halls of Grimwood Manor, mingling with the remnants of a distant thunderstorm. The oppressive air hung heavy with tension, while the flickering shadows danced menacingly against the walls, reminiscent of whispered secrets longing to escape. Suddenly, a sharp gasp echoed from the library, shattering the unnerving quiet. The sound of betrayal crystallizing into the cold steel of despair. There, beneath a towering stack of ancient tomes, lay the lifeless body of Frederick Harrow, his hand clutching a tattered letter that whispered of old sins and buried truths. Hercule Poirot, drawn once more into the depths of despair within the manor, leaned against the doorframe, his eyes narrowing in contemplation. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused softly, his mind racing to comprehend the motive that would lead a man to death in a sanctuary of history and intellect. The eerie glow of the candles cast an unsettling light upon the scene, while the storm outside raged anew, as if nature conspired to mirror the turmoil within which Poirot found himself entangled. Among the troubling tableau, three figures lingered, each cloaked in their own shadows of the past. Eleanor Hastings, the once vibrant niece of the former lord, now stood pallid and consumed by a dreadful aura of fear, her trembling fingers brushing against the edge of the table. Why must this place be haunted by such darkness? She stammered, her sparkling eyes now dulled, reflecting an abyss of dread as they darted toward Poirot. The letter, stained with Frederick's blood, bore witness to secrets that had escaped into the world, and Eleanor's guilt weighed heavily upon her. Then there was Agatha Smith, whose stoic expression betrayed nothing but the unnatural rigidity of her posture. The housekeeper paced in the corner, her hands twisting nervously around the apron she wore, as if it could dispel the creeping shadows. Agatha had long been the keeper of the manor's secrets, whispers of love, betrayal, and a legacy that had entwined itself within the very masonry of Grimwood. Her eyes darkened as they met Poirot's, a buried rage flickering to the surface. "He was no friend to any of us," she spat defensively, yet there lingered an undercurrent of unresolved conflict in her voice. Finally, looming in the background was Lord Beaumont's business partner, Malcolm Pierce, his angular features carved in stone-like focus as he surveyed the chaos unfolding before him. The flickering candlelight caught his gaze, igniting a spark of something unreadable. Malcolm had always stood in Frederick's shadow, a man overshadowed by his wealth, but perhaps harboring ambitions as dark as the stormy night outside. "Frederick was reckless," he interjected, each word crisp and cold. He had been anxious to unveil a new business venture, a venture that might have doomed us all. Was he really murdered or driven by his own foolishness? With the characters set in their uneasy roles, Poirot stepped forward. "Mon ami, I must implore you to remain calm. The truth may appear as tangled as the shadows surrounding us, yet I promise it shall be uncovered." Each gaze turned to him, the atmosphere thick with trepidation and despair as the gravity of the situation pressed upon them. He observed the fine details, the trembling hands, darting glances, and the telltale flush of denial that colored their cheeks. Poirot knew he stood upon the precipice of revelation, a silent storm brewing within the depths of their beings. Within the dimly lit library, Poirot set about unraveling the threads of deception woven into their fabric. He began by probing deeper into Eleanor's strained connection with Frederick. "Tell me, Madame Hastings," he asked, his voice a soft cadence, "were you aware of any disputes, perhaps financial in nature, that may have existed between Mr. Harrow and your uncle?" Eleanor's eyes widened, panic mingling with sorrow as she hesitated. We had disagreements, but nothing that could... we were family." Her stammering defenses revealed the chinks in her emotional armor, and Poirot noted her careful evasion. Turning then to Agatha, he inquired, "And you, dear Agatha, you have known the family for many years. Surely you possess knowledge of past grievances?" Her expression hardened, lips pressed into a thin line. "The Lord was a man of his word, but power changes everything, Monsieur Poirot. He favored Frederick's desires, even when they threatened ruin for all of us." Poirot noted the tension in her chest, the way her voice grew taut with resentment as she suppressed memories of long-standing frustrations. Lastly, he cornered Malcolm, whose veneer of calm belied the raging storm within. "Ah, Monsieur Pierce, you appeared to have benefited greatly from Lord Beaumont's passing. Could the destruction of your business be an incentive for murder?" Malcolm clenched his fists, his jaw tightening visibly. "Frederick was impulsive. He sought to break free from Lord Beaumont's legacy, but I would never resort to such vile treachery." The indignation in his voice flickered with a hint of desperation, exposing yet another layer of suspicion. As the investigation deepened, Poirot found himself ensnared in a web of red herrings. Frederick's letter, filled with cryptic references to hidden assets buried beneath layers of loyalties, suggested a conspiracy far deeper than mere financial ruin. Eleanor had torn it from a trunk filled with old family artifacts, an emotional plea or a calculated betrayal. He saw glimpses of her anguish reflected in the verses, a lament for a past laden with unspeakable grief. Yet every time he thought he had grasped the strands leading to truth, another revelation slipped through his fingers, entwining them further into darkness. As the storm outside subsided into a brooding silence, Poirot gathered the three once more in order to lay bare the sinister entanglement of their lives. "My dear friends," he began, a calculated calm settling upon his voice, "the truth, while elusive, is often wrapped in layers of past grievances." Each one's heart raced as he paused, relishing the gravity of the moment. "Frederick Harrow's death I initially believed to be fueled by ambition, yet the layer of betrayal runs deeper. The body of evidence points towards intentions steeped in secrecy. A vendetta, perhaps?" Eleanor's gaze dropped, and Agatha's composure faltered. Poirot continued, his voice slicing through the tension like a sharp knife. "But I was mistaken. Frederick had not perished solely due to ambition or malice. No, it was you, Monsieur Pierce, who intended to eliminate those who would thwart your ascent. Yet it was your desperation to cling to power that led to your betrayal. Malcolm recoiled, his mask of indifference momentarily shattered. "You cannot accuse me of such things," he shouted, but his eyes flickered with doubt. Poirot's eyes shone with the clarity of his revelation. Yet the real orchestrator of betrayal was none other than dear Eleanor. Yes, it was her emotional turmoil that drew Frederick into her web, and in the heat of a confrontation, it was she who acted in defense of a legacy he sought to destroy. The letter, it was merely a scrap of the profound connection they had, skewed by passions unfulfilled. He paused, letting the finality of his words linger in the air. The atmosphere crackled with tension, yet in the eyes of each character, the truth finally glinted, a haunting essence known only to the heart of grim consequence. Night descended upon Grimwood Manor, thickening with the chilling weight of revealed truths. As Poirot quietly surveyed his surroundings, he intoned his parting words, rich with the burden of knowledge. The shadows of the past, they cast long and merciless avenues. Let it be a lesson. In our striving to attain love and power, we may destroy that which we hold dear. Remember, dear friends, for we are only as free as our secrets allow us to be. With that, he stepped away, the candlelight flickering as if in agreement, and the silence that followed was one heavy with the shared echoes of loss, betrayal, and the haunting shadows of regret. Chapter 3. The Flickering Candle. The flickering candle cast an erratic glow across the library, illuminating the shadows that writhed in tandem with the storm outside. A thundering crash resonated, rattling the ancient glass of the windows and sending a chill through the air. In that unsettling silence that ensued, a scream erupted, sharp, piercing, and utterly despairing. It emanated from the depths of the manor, as if its very walls had become sentient, harboring secrets too volatile to remain unspoken. Hercule Poirot stood motionless, his keen eyes betraying neither shock nor dismay, but rather an insatiable curiosity as he instinctively moved toward the source of the chaos. There amidst the bookshelves, the body of a young woman lay crumpled, her lifeless form partially obscured by cascading volumes. Eleanor Hastings, pale and trembling, looked upon the scene with horror, her blue eyes wide as though she had glimpsed a specter. The once vibrant spark that characterized her had faded into ashen fear. Poirot faltered momentarily, absorbing the tableau before him, the crumpled figure in a crimson dress, the palpable weight of despair, and the shadows that lurked like anxious specters. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "the heart bears the brunt of tragedy, but the mind must seek the truth." Emerging from the darkness, Agatha Smith's formidable presence contorted with betrayal. Her hands were clenched tight, knuckles white, as though she could wrest the very fate of the manor from the spirits that haunted it. "You see, it is this place. The darkness within it breeds despair." She snapped, her voice taut with suppressed fury. Poirot regarded her closely, detecting the flickers of unresolved animosity, particularly at the mention of Eleanor. As the housekeeper stood rigid, Poirot's instinct heightened. What motivations cloaked her stoicism? From the periphery, Malcolm Pierce crept forward, the lines of his face sharpening with anxiety. His eyes darted, betraying the tempest within. "This is madness. She was part of us. She had no enemies here." His breath quickened as he surveyed the grim scene and perhaps understood the implications of her demise. Poirot caught the shadows beneath Malcolm's eyes, darkened by fear and ambition intertwined. "But those we love," Poirot ventured, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos, "may conceal their deepest desires and grievances. Was she not a rival to your aspirations, Monsieur Pierce?" The storm raged outside, echoing the turmoil inside, yet Poirot's mind remained unyielding. He began his inquiries with methodical precision, casting his gaze upon the torn pages that littered the floor, charred by the flickering candlelight. "Eleanor, what transpired here?" he asked, his inflection calm yet piercing. She stiffened, clutching at her trembling hands. I found her like this," she stammered, but Poirot perceived the flicker of a lie within her hesitation. "There was an argument," he probed gently. Perhaps pushed to desperate actions? As despair washed over her features, the air thickened with unspoken truths. Agatha interjected with an anger barely restrained. Do not twist words, Poirot. We may all have grievances, but to accuse— Poirot silenced her with a purposeful glance. My intention is to unravel the thread that binds us, dear Agatha. Fear not the truth. Embrace it. The sharpness of his words bore a duality, as Poirot understood deceit lurked in the corners of their minds, ready to pounce. With steely resolve, Poirot directed his attention to Malcolm, whose facade was crumbling. You mentioned she had no enemies, yet the letter addressed to her was alluding to betrayals of the heart. A familial discord, perhaps? A love unreturned? Malcolm recoiled, the stark color draining from his face. Love has no bearing in this, he snapped defensively. But Poirot detected the pulsating undercurrents of his emotions. A challenge coursed through the air, as every revelation unearthed another layer of suspicion. As the investigation unfolded, heartbeats echoed in the confines of the library, enveloped in a profound silence occasionally punctuated by the storm outside. Poirot noticed details missed by the others. The vase knocked over, scattering petals across the floor, a sign of struggle unrecognized. The open drawer where Eleanor kept her letters, now unceremoniously emptied. Emotions were more tangible than the evidence at hand. Each whisper, each sigh carries weight, my dear friends, Poirot posited softly, his mind weaving their disparate stories into a tapestry of intrigue. An uneasy quiet settled before Poirot finally drew them together for clarity. The truth often lies beneath layers carefully disguised, he announced, his voice rhythmic yet firm. I call upon each of you to be candid, for what was once hidden must now be unveiled. The shadows of our past must not define our fate. One by one, he scrutinized their faces, valor and fear mingling in their eyes. Eleanor was the first to crack under the mounting pressure. I loved her, I confess. Lydia was not just my cousin. She was the sister I never had. Anguish spilled from her lips, raw and authentic, yet flecked with the remnants of jealousy and unresolved affection. But she was drawn to Malcolm. Did you know, Poirot? It threatened everything. At that moment, everything shifted. The gravity of their emotions was palpable, yet a frenzy erupted when Agatha lashed out, her voice cutting through the air. And what of you, Eleanor? Jealousy is but a deception of the heart. What happens when love brings ruin upon us? As if bolstered by newfound courage, Malcolm stepped forward. You, Agatha, were always content to remain in the shadows. Did you harbor fantasies of Lydia's downfall? The very depths of this betrayal? It could be you. In this storm of accusations, Poirot contemplated the layers he had unwittingly unveiled. His inner musings turned heavy, akin to the tempest outside. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. Betrayal can twist even the noblest of souls. He pieced their fractured connections. A love turned dark, a simmering envy erupting into calamity. Thus, with an unexpected twist, Poirot lay bare the intricacies of deception. It was not an individual act of malice that led to Lydia's demise, he pronounced, a hush enveloping the room, but an accidental confrontation, unresolved emotions colliding in a moment of sheer impulse. Eleanor sought to protect events spiraling out of control. In grief and misunderstanding, it was you, Agatha, who ignited the fury that led to her death. The revelation lanced through the room like a blade, igniting a ghastly tension. Agatha staggered back as a pained realization drowned her expression. But the shadows! We cannot escape them! She cried, grappling with the weight of her actions. Poirot adjusted his tie thoughtfully. Indeed, the shadows are ever present, yet it is we who must confront them. And in this, my dear friends, lies the essence of our humanity. The choices we make in striving for love may yield devastating consequences. As silence descended once more, the grim reality lingered like an unwelcome guest. The storm intensified, sound blending with the darkness that enveloped their fates. But Poirot remained resolute, embodying a luminary amidst shadows. Remember this, he said, as he turned to leave the chamber, heavy with sorrow. In the heart of despair lie lessons unlearned and burdens not carried. We are only as free as our unspoken secrets allow us to be. With that, he departed, leaving in his wake an atmosphere thick with unresolved grief, betrayal, and the haunting residue of lost dreams. Chapter 4. A Whisper of Deceit. The candlelight flickered violently against the encroaching shadows, casting grotesque shapes upon the wall of the dimly lit study. A shrill scream pierced the sinister tension that suffocated the air, an echo of horror reverberating through the desolate halls of Grimwood Manor, where dark secrets stirred restlessly in the night. In the far corner, the stillness of the room was shattered as the lifeless body of Frederick Langley lay sprawled on the floor, crimson pooling around him like a warning sign, a morbid testament to the chaotic emotions unleashed within those cursed walls. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of the study, his keen eyes narrowing as he surveyed the room with grave intensity. Each detail whispered secrets only he could decipher. The shattered glass of a forgotten vase, the faintest trace of something metallic adorning Frederick's hand, and the discarded ledger tossed aside, its pages crammed with figures that spoke to an insidious endeavor. The haunting shadow of betrayal clung to every surface, conspiring to twist the flimsy fabric of trust tightly around each character in attendance. Mon Dieu, he murmured, the heart bears many a hidden sorrow, yet the mind must wield its sharpest weapon, truth. With this introspective challenge, Poirot embarked on an investigation that would lay bare the delicate threads weaving a tapestry of intricate deceit. The flickering candlelight painted his elegantly attired figure as both a beacon of hope and a harbinger of doom, illuminating the bloodied floor beneath him, the scene of a desecrated ambition. Among the frantic witnesses to this tragedy stood Eleanor Hastings, her blue eyes shimmering with traitorous tears, reflecting neither shock nor grief, but rather a trepidation born of secrets too burdensome to be carried alone. Once an ally, devoid of malice, now she wore the guise of a potential adversary, her heart evidently torn between loyalty and a past imbued with envy. I didn't mean for this to happen, she stammered, her gaze flitting nervously to the window, where the storm raged as if mirroring her inner turmoil. At her side, Malcolm Pierce was a man transformed. The sharper lines of his face spoke of desperation, tinged with a glimmer of guilt as he fidgeted anxiously. This is utter madness. We are but victims of circumstance, he blurted out, his indignation ringing hollow in the candlelit gloom. Was it merely passion or self-preservation that rendered him so agitated? Poirot's mind danced gracefully through the possibilities, feverishly unearthing intentions lurking in the shadows. Meanwhile, Agatha Smith, the steadfast housekeeper, stood against the mantel, her expression a tempest of envy and wrath, her hands gripping the wooden edge as if to anchor herself against an unseen force. Frederick was a fool. He held ambitions that were not his to claim, she sneered. Yet through the resentment in her voice, Poirot detected a vulnerability that belied her fury, a longing for acknowledgement, buried beneath a heart hardened by disappointments and unfulfilled dreams. The storm outside intensified, filling the space with an oppressive silence, driving Poirot to interject with his calm authority. We are all grasping at shadows, dear friends, but I implore you to examine the truth within your hearts. What do you conceal? His penetrating gaze fell upon each suspect in turn. Doubt simmered in the air, and buried animosities began emerging from the recesses of their minds. With meticulous precision, Poirot began to piece together the fragments of their tangled narratives. He probed Eleanor first, his words as delicate as gossamer threads. You were close to Frederick, no? I detect the residue of an unfulfilled promise. Did it not ignite a spark of loyalty, or perhaps something more perilous? Her face flushed, the pale skin now tinted with guilt. We had our disagreements, she replied softly, but how could I wish harm upon him? Agatha interjected, spite lacing her tone. Lust and ambition can sow discord, Poirot. One must wonder about Eleanor's true motives. Was not Frederick the very next step in your race for success? The accusation hung heavy in the air, a dagger thrust into Eleanor's churning emotions, and for a fleeting moment, it was as if their secrets had momentarily intertwined, forging alliances within the confines of dread. Yet Malcolm was undeterred. A facade of innocence cloaked him, but Poirot noticed the tremor in his hands, the sweat lingering upon his brow. "You think to probe into my intentions?" he blustered, but within his voice lay the distinct edge of vulnerability. "The greater question is, what of you, Agatha? You have long harbored resentments against Frederick. Perhaps you were eager to see him silenced, traumatized by competitors." The fire of accusations ignited a volatile atmosphere, and Poirot, ever the observer, took a moment to frame his next words. "Ah, my dear friends, how easily we cast shadows upon our companions. The longing for success can drive the noblest of souls to great depths of despair." As Poirot pressed on, he discovered fragments of Frederick's past, his ledger revealing more than mere numbers. It was a compendium of broken promises thrown in disarray. The whispers of financial ruin tantalized the minds of each suspect, spiraling accusations that fuzzed the emotional clarity of their hearts. Poirot began to discern the lines of discord etched between the trio, their motives intertwining like twisted vines. With every story, the revelations plunged deeper, macabre roots burrowing beneath the facade of camaraderie. Yet Poirot's shrewdness prevented him from being ensnared by mere appearances. In the heat of rising tensions, he caught the subtle shift in Agatha's expression when the ledger was mentioned, an involuntary flicker of recognition. Ah, there lies something worth investigating. The climax of suspicion reached its height as Poirot assembled them again. "My dear friends, the truth teeters upon the precipice of foundation. Let us decipher what truly lies beneath the surface." With each suspect's unease, the dance of their secrets began to shuffle, each reveal shifting the focus as motivations spiraled ever closer to the brink. Frederick was indeed a conduit for ambition. He announced with chilling clarity, his voice resonating within the dim chamber. His aims revealed more than a mere drive for success. They harbored a web of betrayal and broken hearts. As he articulated his deductions, he scrutinized their expressions, watching the realization mingle with desperation. A realization echoed by the sound of thunder that rattled the very foundation of the manor. Yet there remained a final enigma, one that twisted within the shadows, manifesting as a looming presence. Just as Poirot laid bare the layers of deception, he paused long enough to look each of them in the eye. One final twist awaited. "It was not merely a single betrayal that inspired this tragedy," he murmured, pausing for dramatic effect, "but the accumulation of envy married to unrequited love. Frederick was not murdered by a single hand, but rather met his end at the confluence of emotional upheaval orchestrated by the very insecurities that bound you all." Gasps filled the air, their reactions, expressive yet layered. But the true wielder of the dagger, the one who ignited this inferno, was not merely one of you, but a confluence of your darkest natures. Poirot leaned in, the candles dancing as if foreshadowing the emotional tempest. "By casting stones, you inadvertently conspired in the ruin of a soul." A sickening realization fell across the suspects. One who believed they'd orchestrated this dreadful symphony was merely an instrument in a chaotic ensemble of emotion. Poirot's eyes shimmered with understanding, and he concluded, "In seeking to silence betrayal, you have all penned a cacophony of anguish that reverberates through the heart of Grimwood Manor. Remember, we are never truly free. We remain ensnared by that which we allow to dwell within the shadows." And with that, Poirot turned and stepped into the night, leaving behind a tempest of unanswered questions and the haunting echoes of his words. A revelation not merely unveiling a murder, but a meditation on the human heart where darkness often danced with the light. Chapter 5. The Art of Misdirection. A chilling scream echoed through the dimly lit corridors of Grimwood Manor, reverberating against the grand mahogany walls, slicing through the oppressive silence that had settled like a thick fog. Poirot paused at the threshold of the ornately carved doorway, his brow furrowing as he surveyed the scene before him. Another tragedy shadowed by the relentless tempest outside. There, amongst the chaos, lay the body of Malcolm Pierce, his face contorted in fear, a dagger protruding cruelly from his chest. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, stepping cautiously into the room, wary of the silence that thickened around him. It was an all too familiar tableau of betrayal and emotion unfurling beneath the storm's furious rage. He knew well that the heart could hide myriad secrets, and this night was destined to unravel many. The storm's roar mingled with the unspeakable tension that hung palpably within the confines of the room. Still he approached, his white-gloved hands resting thoughtfully beneath his chin, while shadows danced as if mocking the soul that had just departed. Eleanor Hastings stood to one side, her blue eyes wide, reflecting an emotion verging on panic. I, I didn't mean for this to happen," she stammered, her voice trembling as she glanced from Poirot to the lifeless form before them. Just beyond her, Agatha Smith, the housekeeper, stood rigid, her expression a tapestry of triumph, laced with horror. "Good riddance, I say. Malcolm was naught but a burden to us all," she spat, her hands clenched at her sides. Poirot noted the tightness of her jaw, the subtle twitch of her fingers, details hidden from all but the most discerning eyes. "It seems we find ourselves entwined once again in a web of deception," Poirot remarked, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "Yet there are intricacies here that warrant a closer examination, none?" His gaze darted to the ledger sprawled upon the office desk, a well-worn book that spoke of finances and secrets, now tainted with blood. He approached, the candlelight flickering ominously, casting long shadows as if to hide the truth itself. Acting quickly, Poirot began his inquiry. "Mademoiselle Eleanor, your connection to Mr. Pierce is apparent. Is it not true you felt an ever-deepening animosity towards him?" Eleanor's face flushed deeply, revealing a turbulent tide of emotions. "I had my reasons to resent him, but murder? Never." Her resolve shook slightly, and Poirot felt the heaviness of her words laden with burdens unseen. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot replied, his eyes glittering with the thrill of the chase. He turned to Agatha, now keenly aware of the tension that enveloped her. "And you, Madame Smith, were you as eager to free yourself from Malcolm's so-called burden? Or is it perhaps that you were a greater player in this tragic farce than one might initially perceive?" "Player?" Agatha scoffed, her voice biting. "That fool brought nothing but chaos. He was as much a victim of destiny as the rest of us." Yet her bitter tone betrayed a deeper resentment. Poirot noted her agitated stance, the way she leaned into the shadows. With each revelation, Poirot pieced together their intricate narratives. Yet he sensed an undercurrent, something not initially visible. Suspicion shifted among the trio, like shifting sands beneath their feet, each one attempting to drag the other down into the abyss of guilt. Secrets blossomed in the candlelit gloom, twisted like thorns, waiting to ensnare their unsuspecting hearts. Yet as Poirot pressed further, hints emerged, illuminating paths and casting new doubts. The ledger, amidst its scrawled numbers, bore the faintest trace of ink, one that led to an account of spiraling debts. "Ah, the human compulsion towards greed, how fragile it makes our little lives," he mused aloud, allowing their eyes to dart nervously. Was it not Malcolm who wished to wrest control over the very ambitions that once intertwined your fates? Eleanor gasped, her expression shifting from dread to consideration. I merely sought to protect what was rightfully mine," she began, faltering as her gaze collided with Agatha's, who merely scoffed at her evident guilt. "Protect or pursue? The specter of ambition can cloud even the clearest of minds." As the storm raged outside, Poirot directed his penetrating gaze toward them. In this tumult, one must ponder the question, why was this night chosen for the execution of fate? He watched them, each woman shuffling nervously, uncertainty overtaking their bravado. The whispers lingering among the three began to interlace, intertwining their tales of betrayal, yet flourishing with malevolence. A careful distortion played before his eyes, an unsuspected twist held captive within Malcolm's final moments. And yet, the question grows ever more complex, n'est-ce pas? Who within this room truly wished him gone? As Poirot dissected their words, the tangible tension twisted tighter, an invisible snare that threatened to ensnare them all. Gathering them for his final analysis, Poirot pulled the strands of concoction together, each knot infused with the weight of savored ambition. Ladies, I sense a misunderstanding. For though you feign disbelief, all involvement leads back here, under the looming embrace of hidden intentions. Eleanor's gaze shifted to the ledger again, and Agatha's hardened expression faltered momentarily. Poirot paused, eyes glinting with the thrill of discovery. And herein lies the ultimate twist. It appears our dear Malcolm held the conditional power to redefine your fates. It was not merely ambition that bored through the heart of Grimwood Manor, but the chilling embrace of unyielding desire. The dagger, my dear ladies, was born not of a singular choice, but rather a symphony of desperation, each of you underscoring a note of betrayal. Silence pressed upon them, the weight of his revelations throbbing in the night air. Poirot stepped closer, observing the ashen realization spreading across their features. But one weapon, one decision, bore the weight of their fate. The true wielder of the blade was cloaked not in courage, but in a concealed identity, the one who conspired with a lover's betrayal. At that moment, Eleanor's demeanor shifted, panic aligning with a dawning recognition. "Oh no," she whispered, and Poirot responded, delicately, "Yes, mademoiselle. For in our haste to secure ambitions, we often forge the very chains that ensnare our souls." The room erupted in chaos, accusations ricocheting through the air, the fury of the storm mimicking the tempest of emotions unleashed. Yet there, amidst the maelstrom, Poirot stood composed, surveying the shadows that danced before him. As the storm began to abate outside, he uttered his final words, a haunting testament to their entwined fates. In life, as in shadows, we often find that our greatest betrayals lie not in the actions of others, but within our very own hearts. Chapter 6. The Key to Oblivion. The storm roared like a beast unleashed, its winds howling through the cracks of Grimwood Manor, while in the candlelit study, a single flickering flame danced precariously atop an ornate candelabrum. The oppressive atmosphere thickened the air, making it heavy with promise and dread. Then came the sound, a muffled thud followed by a desperate gasp. A sound you would be loath to ignore. Hercule Poirot stood a few feet from the now closed door of the study, his sharp instincts alerted and eyes narrowed as he considered the unsettling scene before him. In the dim light, he caught a glimpse of a crumpled piece of parchment fluttering from the desk, and as it danced in the flickering shadows, he sensed that it carried secrets worth investigating. With a swift move, he made his way to the door, sensing a chilling stillness that whispered of misfortune beyond its threshold. Upon entering, Poirot was greeted by a chaotic tableau, reminiscent of a tragic painting. The body of Reginald Fenton sprawled grotesquely on the polished oak floor, a dagger embedded deep in his chest, gleaming ominously in the candlelight, as if it too were a witness to the treachery that had unfolded. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, stepping closer, the weight of anguish resounding in his chest, not merely for the deceased, but for what had carved the path to this moment of ruin. Reginald's tumultuous relationship stirred like a storm in the minds of the living. Eleanor Hastings, her face pale, trembled against the wall, hands clutching her throat as panic skidded across her visage. Next to her, the housekeeper, Agatha Smith, stood with a look of resignation, fatigue seeping into her posture as though she had anticipated this tragedy. Yet it was Arthur Pembroke, Reginald's closest friend, whose trembling fury threatened to spill over, his face flushed with betrayal. "He had it coming," Arthur spat, the venom in his words wrapped tightly around his grief. "He was a devil incarnate." Poirot observed each of them closely, capturing the minutiae of their reactions. The rapid blinks, the clenched jaws, the way they shifted their weight as if each moment bore unbearable gravity. "But what, pray tell, did he do to provoke such fury, Monsieur Pembroke?" Poirot asked, his tone silky yet firm, probing for weakness in their facades. Arthur's eyes sparkled. With anger, but beneath it, Poirot detected a flicker of fear. "His manipulations drove everyone to the brink, Poirot. Reginald, He played us all as if we were mere pawns in his immoral game, he shouted, his emotions breaking the icy silence. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot offered, contemplating the layers of disdain that lay woven into Arthur's words. With each declaration, he could feel a tangled web before him, one that begged for careful unraveling. It was the ledger atop Reginald's desk that drew Poirot's attention next. Dusty and well-worn, its pages thick with the residue of secrets long held. This ledger, it hints at more than simple debts, non? Perhaps something more sinister? He mused aloud, running a delicate finger over the ink. Accounts reflecting not only financial ruin, but invoices of betrayal and emotional debt. Reginald was a charlatan, Agatha interjected, an edge to her voice. He manipulated his way through life, ruining everything he touched. Perhaps it is the world that is rid of his poison. Yet as she spoke, Poirot noted the tremor in her hands and the fleeting fear in her glaze. Shouldn't the housekeeper's glee be tempered with sorrow for the dead? Then you, Madame Smith, bore the burden of his chaos, yet cherished it like a well-worn coat? Poirot asked, raising an eyebrow. Or perhaps you wished to shield yourself from the consequences of his actions? She fell silent, and in that silence he sensed something deeper lurking, hidden from view. As Poirot gathered the threads of this tragic tapestry, the storm outside mirrored the chaos within the room. Eleanor's voice cut through the weighty silence, trembling but resolute. We are not guilty of his death, Poirot. We were merely players, dancing to his tune. Ah, but every dance has a lead, mademoiselle, he responded, the calmness in his tone contrasting with the growing anxiety in the room. It is vital to uncover the truth hidden among the chaos. As the investigation unfolded, every suspect danced around a truth cloaked in shadows. Betrayal twisted their loyalties, dimming their minds. Eleanor claimed to be a victim of Reginald's whims, recalling stories of broken promises and emotional manipulation. Arthur's bitterness painted a portrait of a man wronged, yet his eyes flickered with a sorrow that spoke of deeper ties. Agatha's icy mask cracked slightly with coiled frustration, her sarcasm failing to mask a sense of regret. Yet the resolution remained elusive, stretching the tension like an elastic band about to snap. It was when Poirot uncovered a hidden correspondence beneath the ledger, letters entwined with sentiments of love, envy, betrayal, that a sudden revelation struck him fiercely. The identity of the messenger who intertwined their fates morphed like shadows under candlelight. Could it be, he murmured thoughtfully, his mind racing, the dagger that struck true is not merely a tool of death, but rather a reflection of hearts entwined in a tragic dance? Each one of you shuffled your truths through this symphony of animosity. In that moment, a squall of truth raged within the room, revealing a most unexpected twist. Arthur's brow furrowed as he stumbled upon a revelation in the letters. It appeared Reginald had spoken of unveiling a secret relationship involving Eleanor and Arthur that could unravel their lives. Oh no, he whispered in horror, realizing it was not merely the desire for retribution but a haunting love that bore witness to the chaos. It was then that Poirot stepped back, bearing witness to a reality shifting beneath their feet, a tangled mesh of hearts, fears, and the very worst of intentions. It is the consequence of buried truths, is it not, my dear friends? He asserted, simmering in the tension that filled the air, thick as the storm outside. In our despair, our hearts have betrayed us, fueled by unspoken desires and relentless envy, Poirot concluded, gesturing toward the letters. For within lies the true key to oblivion. He left them with their shattered illusions, knowing that they were forever marked by the weight of their own contradictions. With but a mild sigh, Poirot departed into the depths of the night, leaving behind a cacophony of shattered lives and unmanageable grief. In seeking to silence our desires, we only open the door to the abyss, he whispered to himself, the darkness enveloping him like a shroud, leaving a lingering echo of his profound insight behind. Chapter 7. The Ghost in the Gallery. The painting hung precariously, a specter shrouded in shadows, a haunting visage whose eyes seemed to follow every flicker of movement in the dim light of Grimwood Manor. As the thunder clapped outside, echoing through the desolate halls, the figure flickered momentarily beneath the canvas, as if imbued with a breath of life. Hercule Poirot stood before it, the air around him crackling with the ominous energy of the storm, his senses heightened to the peculiarities of the night. The midnight hour bore witness to an event that would irrevocably entwine the legacies of the living and the dead. A muted cry echoed from the gallery, piercing the solitude of the manor. Poirot turned sharply, drawn by the sound. He instructed his companion, Inspector Reddington, to follow closely as they navigated the winding corridors, a light only with the flickering of oil lamps. Each step heightened by the dreadful anticipation that thrummed like an incessant pulse. Upon reaching the gallery, the sight that greeted them was both captivating and macabre. Lady Vivian Dunn, a prominent art collector and the host of the evening's soirée, stood wide-eyed, trembling at the foot of her prized painting. Her hands fluttered as if to ward off an unseen presence, the fear palpable as she stammered, "I saw her, Hercule." The ghost of Lady Marguerite. It appeared before me, warning of doom. Much like the tempest beyond their walls, the atmosphere in the gallery grew thick with apprehension. Lady Vivian, once a woman of poise and elegance, succumbed to her fear, her breath quick and shallow. It was not only the shock of the supernatural that gripped her, but a profound horror that lay clutched in her heart. Lady Marguerite had been the previous owner of the painting, a woman whose life was shrouded in scandal and whose death remained an enigma. Rumors whispered that she had met her end, in these very halls, betrayed by those she trusted most. The heirloom art was said to be a conduit to her restless spirit, an eternal reminder of both ambition and deceit. "Mon ami," Poirot addressed Reddington softly, his voice steady as the tension escalated around them. "The human heart, it hides many things, yet some secrets refuse to remain buried in the canvas of time." He leaned closer to Lady Vivian, his gaze penetrating the veneer of her anxious facade. "You claim to have witnessed a ghost, yet did you not find it curious that none other have experienced this apparition?" Lady Vivian's eyes darted, and Poirot noted how her voice cracked. I do not know. I felt her presence, her sorrow. Perhaps it is a warning, a message of impending tragedy." With every breath that passed her lips, Poirot sensed a deeper involvement within her, a connection banked upon the embers of guilt and regret. But before he could delve further, the commotion in the gallery shifted focus. Mr. Lawrence Grayson, the manor's curator, emerged from the shadows, less shaken but no less suspicious. "Lady Vivian is yet again losing herself to artistic fantasy," he said with a dismissive wave, his tone dripping with condescension. "That painting fuels her delusions. It's only a canvas, after all." As Poirot observed him, he saw a man punctuated by cynicism, his posture erect, yet exuding a worried tension. Grayson had devoted his life to the heritage of arts, but the legacy of Lady Marguerite, it seemed, troubled him in ways beyond mere historical passion. "Do you not find it extraordinary, Mr. Grayson, that you would so readily dismiss her fears?" Poirot asked, his steady gaze ensnaring Grayson's retreating confidence. "What if the veil between our world and the next is thinner in this abode of betrayal?" The curator turned pale at the implication, his eyes betraying a flicker of worry that did not escape Poirot. In the corner, a third figure lingered. Margaret Maggie Dunn, Lady Vivian's enigmatic sister, known for her quiet resolve. Yet beneath her calm facade, Poirot perceived a restless tumult poised to breach the surface. "Have you not seen what resides in that portrait, Miss Dunn?" "Could you?" he ventured, but Maggie's gaze hardened. "It was an accident," she interjected sharply, harshly cutting off Poirot's thoughts. "Lady Marguerite's death, a mere consequence of circumstance. Perhaps we should cease dwelling on folklore and confront the reality of our lives?" Yet her voice trembled, scarcely masking the anguish heaved beneath a veneer of strength. With tensions cascading like the storm lurking beyond the manor's walls, Poirot took stock of the tableau before him, recognizing that each character concealed a truth intertwined with desire and betrayal. As the storm raged, they circled one another like caged creatures, secrets poised to unravel. The following hours cascaded in disarray as Poirot summoned the trio to his study to sift through their intricate narratives. The Tempest outside roared, winds shrieking through crevices, echoing the tempest of emotions swirling in the room. Each suspect spun their tale. Lady Vivian animatedly spoke of her connection with Lady Marguerite's ghost and the warnings she imparted, though the fear in her voice belied the authenticity of her experiences. "I could never betray her," she proclaimed, her desperation rising. "The painting was our promise, a binding pact between us." "Binding indeed," Reddington interjected, his brow furrowed. "Yet binding contracts often leave room for manipulation, do they not? Who bears witness to their own guilt?" Lady Vivian recoiled, her voice faltering as fragments of distress splintered her resolve. Meanwhile, Grayson attempted to instill skepticism further into the conversation. "It is far-fetched to believe a painting could harbor a ghost," he said, fumbling with his paperwork, but the cracks in his confidence widened as Poirot honed in. "Ah, but what of that ledger?" Poirot mused, that dusty tome that had echoed the whispers of ambition and envy, for it speaks to a different tale, one of mounting debts owed not merely in currency, but in trust and betrayal. As the storm intensified, a chilling urgency loomed. The myriad clues began to entwine, steering Poirot toward an unsettling conclusion. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing a specter of truth, a reflection of a man, or rather an absence, one containing anguish and regret. Grayson's demeanor changed, his defenses buckling with suspicion. Was it guilt that accompanied him through the dim corridors of Grimwood? "Have you visited the gallery of late, Monsieur Grayson?" Poirot inquired, his voice smooth yet commanding. "For I suspect the answers lay scattered on the very canvas of your existence." Grayson's facade faltered, the bravado crumbling as the storm raged far beyond the walls, mirroring the tempest within. But it was Margaret's response that bore the fatal twist. "She meant to expose us," she gasped, her revelation lurching forth from the depths. "The letters. She uncovered the truth within her past. So I had to act to protect us all." Through this chain of words, the puzzle began to connect. A ghost was not merely a haunting presence of the past, but a manifestation of many hearts laden with pain. Poirot regarded them with unfaltering clarity. To be marked by betrayal, no matter how deep, left scars unseen. With a final flourish of articulation, Poirot revealed the entwined complexities of longing and deception among the living. "Dear friends, you have been carried away by trying to silence your truths. Lady Marguerite sought to unveil the secrets you kept. She was your undoing and your salvation all entwined. As the truth settled in the confines of the artwork, the shadows in the gallery found their rhythm. The spirit of Lady Marguerite materialized in their hearts, a redemption born through pain. The finality crashed like thunder, leaving Poirot to contemplate the nature of betrayal. In life, as in the realm of shadows, we find our catastrophes hidden within our desires, mon ami. The relentless specter haunts not the past but our very souls." Chapter 8. The betrayer revealed thunder rumbled through the suffocating silence, rippling across the grandiose halls of Grimwood Manor like the harbinger of doom. In the solitude of the drawing room, the candlelight flickered ominously, casting dark shadows that twisted and danced along the walls, mirroring the turmoil churning within Hercule Poirot's own mind. Before him lay an array of scattered letters, love notes, threats, and desperate pleas, all tinged with the essence of betrayal and guilt. The melancholic atmosphere was palpable, thick as the storm beyond. "Upon this stormy night, I sense that secrets shall be laid bare," Poirot murmured to himself, his keen eyes glinting with an inner light as they scanned the room. As he pondered the fate of Lady Marguerite's ghost, the very specter that had entangled them all, the door creaked open, revealing Lady Vivian, her complexion unusually pale, yet her resolve seemingly unshakable. The tremors of her earlier fright were replaced by a tense fortitude, as if she had donned a mask to shield her from the truth. "Mon cher Poirot," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I cannot bear the weight of all that has unfolded. Whispers linger in every corner of this manor, accusations, suspicions." She looked away briefly, her gaze settling on the painting looming above the mantelpiece, its dark hues ever so ominous in the candlelight. I fear not only for myself, but for those I hold dear. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot replied, his tone soothing yet insistent. Tell me, Lady Vivian, of every shadow you perceive, for in such confessions may lie the key to unlocking truth. A shiver danced along her spine as she glanced toward the door, then leaned in closer, conspiratorially whispering, I believe Mr. Lawrence Grayson knows more than he admits. I caught him lurking in the gallery late last night. The manner in which he studies that inscrutable ledger, it feels like he bears witness to some hidden sin. Poirot's curiosity piqued. A faint smile touched his lips. A specter of guilt, perhaps. But the ledger holds secrets beyond mere dates and transactions. He proceeded to where Grayson had perched himself in a distant corner, his brow furrowing beneath the weight of suspicion. Mr. Grayson, Poirot intoned, his voice steady and unwavering, many things transpire under the cloak of night, yet your demeanor reveals the storm within. The curator met Poirot's gaze, indignation flaring momentarily before he regained composure. You are mistaken, Poirot. I am merely an observer of art's legacy, nothing more. Yet as he spoke, his fingers trembling betrayed his anxiety, sending a delicate shiver through the air. Lady Marguerite died under tragic circumstances. What more? Would I have to gain from dwelling upon her unfortunate fate? The truth, Mr. Grayson, is often more intricate than mere circumstance, Poirot replied, drawing closer to the curator. Pray, what if I were to suggest that your ongoing fascination with Lady Marguerite's past stems from a far deeper connection? What if the legacy you protect bears the weight of your own trespasses? Before Grayson could respond, Margaret Maggie Dunn, the ever-quiet sister of Lady Vivian, entered her presence, akin to a shadow sliding through dim light. The air thickened with her palpable disarray. You are wrong, Hercule, she said unexpectedly, her voice edged with sharpness. We cannot continue to scrutinize one another. It is our shared trauma that binds us. Her brows knit together, revealing a conflict buried beneath her calm facade. Trauma indeed, Miss Dunn, Poirot interjected, an inquisitive gleam igniting in his eye. It seethes beneath the surface of all emotions, like a storm brewing at sea. Yet, one must ask, do you harbor feelings toward Lady Marguerite beyond mere guardianship? Your defensiveness betrays an implication of deeper ties. As she squared her shoulders, anger simmering in her expression, Maggie's voice quivered with conviction. Lady Marguerite's death was nothing more than a consequence of circumstance. She was a reckless woman, playing her own games, and we paid the price for her folly. The air in the room shifted palpably, tension coiling tighter. Poirot nodded slowly, his mind alert to the unspoken fact that each character in this treacherous drama encapsulated hidden truths. And you dare suggest, Poirot said calmly, that this recklessness was born of innocence? The intricate web spun by needle and thread often conceals secrets far greater than we imagine. As the storm outside raged with renewed vigor, Poirot began to delve deeper into the narrative spun from the night's earlier revelations. Tell me of the letters, he demanded with a touch of fervor, sensing the reluctance to divulge something crucial. Do they reveal any connections to our dearly departed Lady Marguerite? Caught in a web strained by guilt, both Lady Vivian and Mr. Grayson exchanged nervous glances, a silence pregnant with insecurity hanging heavy in the air. The longer they hesitated, the more the darkness seemed to creep closer. It was in that charged pause that Poirot's expression transformed, his eyes narrowing as he conceived the ultimate connection, a hasty confabulation between the heart's misunderstandings. You believed that Lady Margaret sought to reveal your deepest fears, yet in truth, she was but a mirror reflecting the darkness nestled within each of you. A tidal wave of realization surged through those gathered. A mere flicker of light seems to cast illuminating shadows over their hearts. But there is another, Poirot continued, sharpening his focus. What if among you one carried an even heavier burden? His gaze landed on Lady Vivian, whose complexion ghosted further. Did you not secretly want the painting to remain yours, devoid of competition? With the atmosphere galvanizing into a crescendo of emotions, Lady Vivian's resolve shattered. Her voice broke between gasps, each word a confession laid bare. I never meant for it to happen. When Marguerite discovered the letters, I panicked, thinking she would reveal my family's darkest secrets. I had to protect us all. She was going to expose me. In this destabilizing moment, a realization dawned. Betrayal lurked not only in acts but in intentions. Each character had family ties too delicate to unravel, woven tightly into the very fabric of deception. Poirot's expression was as unflinching as ever, his eyes aflame with clarity. In escaping the ghosts of the past, you have summoned a new horror, a relentless torment that will forever haunt your souls. Silence enveloped the room like a shroud, heavy with the weight of their fateful decisions. They were marked not by singular wrongdoings, but by the intricate tapestry of blame stretched taut across their lives. Looking deep into each of their eyes, Poirot concluded, My friends, in your desperation to preserve innocence, you have ventured away from the truth of your existence. Haunted by your betrayals, the specter of Lady Marguerite shall remain, a reminder that it is not merely darkness one must confront, but the shadows tethered tightly to one's heart. As the storm roared on outside, the winds rattled the very foundations of Grimwood Manor, leaving Poirot standing amidst shattered lives and haunting truths, delivering the poignant echo of a life lived in shadow. Chapter 9. Clue in the Chaos. The air thrummed with a tension that crackled like electric current as a distant scream echoed through the labyrinthine halls of Grimwood Manor, carried on the gusts of a malevolent storm. Shadows danced wildly, distorted by the flickering candlelight. Where moments earlier had stood but a solemn gathering, a figure lay sprawled against the cold, polished floor. Lawrence Grayson, the curator whose secrets had threatened to unravel the tightly woven fabric of their lives. His eyes were wide open, staring into the abyss of the unknown, while a single crimson drop marred the pristine white of his shirt. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, instinctively stepping closer, yet keeping the detachment of a seasoned observer. The fluttering shadows seemed to whisper of a greater horror, as he silently took in the chaotic scene, the scattered letters, the half-open door that swung eerily with the wind, and the others standing frozen like statues, riveted by a tableau of dread. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he reminded himself, inner thoughts racing faster than the tempest outside. In the eye of the storm, Lady Vivian stood, her countenance bereft of color, trembling yet resolute. He wouldn't, she stammered, each word a fragile feather, buoyed by a gale of uncertainty. What happened here, Poirot? He was with us moments ago. Her voice cracked at the edge, a tremor slicing through the tense air. Margaret Maggie Dunn was next, her demeanor fidgety as she gripped the lapels of her coat. We should alert the authorities, she suggested, her eyes darting to the door, revealed as a sanctuary from the chaos within. But this cannot be happening. We were simply discussing the painting. Her distress buried a different kind of urgency, a deer in headlights caught between guilt and fear. Poirot's gaze flitted from one character to the next, pulling at the strings of their turbulent emotions, seeking the telltale signs hidden beneath the surface. Calm yourself, madame, he urged, his presence like a guiding hand against the chaos. Grayson is but a victim of the tempest outside, though his demise holds only the beginning of truth. We must not act rashly. Then there was Lady Marguerite's spirit, a specter entwined in their lives like a thread of silk and shadow. Every emotional turmoil, every unspoken grievance bore weight beneath the haunting painting that hung just above the mantel. Unbeknownst to the three of them, Grayson had been working on uncovering the secrets held within that canvas, secrets too perilous to be unleashed. With precise movements, Poirot knelt beside the body and noted the details others might overlook. An inconspicuous smudge of soot near Grayson's fingertips, the slight crumple of a letter half tucked within his jacket. Lady Vivian, do you recognize this? He asked, his voice cutting through the rising tension with surgical precision as he unfolded the letter. Its content leaped into the light, a wild confession revealing a clandestine affair, the words wavering in anguished ink. Lady Vivian flinched, her shock palpable. "That was not meant for you to find," she hissed, the truth revealed like a bitter fruit on her tongue. "I did not. It was only for him to understand." "Yet it seems he understood all too well, madame," Poirot responded, his eyes alight with the gleam of insight. "This affair, it binds you both in ways that transcend mere words." Maggie, shifting anxiously between the two, found her voice. "There lies a burden in our family, Poirot. Secrets we could not expose, even to save ourselves." Her resolve, like her sister's, trembled dangerously, revealing motives layered like the very fabric of their lives. "Then there is another possibility," Poirot pressed gently, drawing from their reluctance like a painter pulling color from a palette. "You, Monsieur Grayson, were seeking the truth in this affair? No? Armed with such revelations was a dangerous endeavor." He witnessed the collaborative exchange of sidelong glances between the ladies as the tension thickened. Like a tide revealing its riches, clues unfurled before him, yet in the cacophony of their emotions lay a glaring distraction. The more he uncovered, the more he felt reality fracture at the seams. Each thread tightened around the three of them, identities swirling in murky waters. As the storm raged on, intense and foreboding, Poirot rose to his feet, his mind a whir of both intention and confusion. "But wait. There is one who remains shrouded in mystery," he announced, pointing a finger toward the velvet-clad portrait of Lady Marguerite above the fire. "This painting, its significance is paramount. Its unveiling acts as a mirror to your reality." The room chilled, breaths caught in suspense. "You all believe it to be a mere representation, yet what if it bears witness to untold truths and regrets?" Grayson drew from its depths, and in doing so, unearthed secrets that could destroy your familial ties. Suddenly the door creaked open, a gust of wind enveloping the chamber, reverberating through the voluminous darkness as a new figure emerged. It was Algernon, a friend of Grayson, who appeared breathless, face flushed with urgency. "I heard the commotion. What has happened?" he barked, his eyes scanning the haunting tableau, landing bitterly on Grayson's body. Poirot's keen gaze caught every detail, the glint of fear in Algernon's eyes, the quickened pace of his breath, and the palpitating pulse of tension that enveloped the room. "Monsieur Algernon, welcome to this fatal gathering," he remarked, his tone deceptively polite, yet laced with gravitas. "You arrived just in time to witness the unraveling of a fabric woven from deception." "What fabric?" Algernon retorted, brow furrowing with indignation. "The fabric of betrayal that your dear friend Lawrence managed to weave between the three," Poirot replied, his voice a low, menacing whisper. "Now I propose a most unfortunate realization. As much as Grayson sought to protect your secrets, it seems the fear of exposure has resulted not merely in death, but in an act of unforeseen betrayal." He removed the letter from Grayson's jacket and held it aloft, watching as the light flickered against the twisted emotions on the faces surrounding him. A confession, intertwined with love and revenge, it seems, a jealous heart trapped within its desires. Reflections whipped against the walls like the ghosts of Lady Margaret, her spirit palpable in the charged air. One final twist emerged in the tightly woven fabric, the realization that each character held a darker truth, unbound by guilt, impressed against the weight of their decisions. As suspense etched itself across their faces, Poirot concluded, "In this chaos lies an overwhelming truth. It is not the ghost of Lady Marguerite that haunts you, but the shadows you carry with you, all that love, betrayal, and guilt manifesting amongst the living. Blinded by your desperation to safeguard one another, it is you who have unwittingly created your own doom." The darkness descended with finality, leaving Poirot the sole bearer of truth amidst cascading shadows. "Now, dear friends, as the storm rages on, understand, this betrayal is not born merely from intention, but rooted in the hearts of those unwilling to face their own tumultuous reflections." Chapter 10. The Web Tightens. The incessant rumble of thunder echoed through the decaying halls of Grimwood Manor, a harbinger of the malevolence that lurked within. Lightning sliced through the darkness, illuminating the pallid faces of those gathered, revealing fleeting expressions of fear. their souls mere marionettes dancing to the strings of treachery. Putty, the flickering candlelight, shadows stretched like obsidian fingers, clawing their way across the ornate walls adorned with the haunting visage of Lady Margaret. It was among these phantoms that a whisper of confession stirred. I cannot bear the weight any longer. Poirot stood mid-room, a steadfast lighthouse amidst a tempest of emotions. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he murmured to himself, extracting elucidation from the chaos. His observant gaze swept over the three main suspects. Lady Vivian, elevated yet fragile like a porcelain doll, was a tempest of guilt battling against her resolute facade. Near her, Algernon, the friend with whom Grayson had had a complicated relationship, paced nervously like a caged beast, attempting to mask the turmoil within. Across the room, Maggie, her eyes frantic yet deceptively calm, clutched a family heirloom. A locket, perhaps, harboring not just memories but unspeakable pain. The body of Lawrence Grayson lay, sprawled across the cold marble floor, a still display of the life abruptly extinguished. His death reverberated like a haunting melody through the very fabric of their lives, each character tethered by secrets and burdens invisible to the naked eye. Poirot endeavored to unravel this complexity, his mind akin to a delicate clockwork, moving fluidly even in a storm's chaos. We must maintain our composure, he declared, his voice smooth yet authoritative, for within our shared tension lies the truth. A heavy silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the rapid ticks of a nearby clock, a cruel reminder of time running relentlessly forward. Lady Vivian glanced nervously toward the doorway, as if seeking an escape, yet bound by the shackles of her own sins. I barely knew him, she whispered, her voice laced with feigned innocence. What could I possibly have to do with his death? Poirot took a measured step towards her, eyes gleaming with insight. Ah, but the threads of deceit. We've a most intricate tapestry, madame. Motives shift and swell like the tide. Tell me, did you not hold secrets that could have wreaked havoc upon your family's legacy? She paled further, hesitance dancing across her brow. He was my confidant, only for his knowledge of the painting, nothing more. The curator's spectral presence clung to her words, yet within that statement was an unsettling revelation. Grayson, torn between loyalty and revelation, had perhaps become overwhelmed by the weight of the secrets he uncovered. Poirot seized upon this uncertainty, allowing suspicion to blossom like poisonous roses among the audience that hung breathless in anticipation. Then there was Algernon, a figure of tension suffused with an underlying resentment. You question her, Poirot, he interjected, his voice a gravelly whisper. Yet it is you who will fail to see the forest for the trees. Lady Marguerite's legacy, her painting, her secrets, they bind us all. So you speak of binding ties? Monsieur Algernon, Poirot replied, his gaze fixed upon him with laser-like precision. What, I wonder, do you truly fear? The release of her burdens or the revelations of your own? The shadows around Algernon appeared to pulsate, darkening the space between his clenched jaw and widened eyes. Around the room, murmurs swirled like a tempest, swaying from one suspect to another. What deeper malice lured each character within its tendrils? Poirot noted the small details. Lady Vivian's slight shiver, Algernon's clenched fists, and Maggie's sudden stillness. Each tick of the clock seemed to thrum with an intensifying pulse, drawing them into a tighter coil. Let us not travel merely in circles, Poirot urged, his mind whirling with the revelations of an intricate web of connections. It is time we sift through this chaos to unveil the truth about the evening that led to Mr. Grayson's untimely demise. He approached Maggie with a keen intensity, finding her gaze darting not only toward her sister but also lingering uncomfortably upon the closed door beyond. What burdens do you hide, my dear? Perhaps not just voices carried by a painting? I have no part in this, she declared, her voice rising sharply yet faltering at the edges, an echo of undeniable fear. I was with Lady Vivian the entire time. We were just discussing family matters. Poirot's brows knitted in deep contemplation. Their words formed a fragile barrier, yet exposed the trembling hearts beneath. Layers of Motives he now dissected methodically. Then what of Lawrence's inquiry about that very painting? Surely you must reckon that his death is a consequence of a most unholy secret, an attempt to safeguard your family based upon the ties that bind and entwine? Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the dim room, all faces momentarily silhouetted in dramatic contrast, the tension palpable as shadows danced. In that fleeting moment, Poirot recognized a crucial truth hidden among their familial arrangement. Wait, he interrupted, the air thick with mistrust. There lies within the dark marrow of this affair a revelation far more potent than mere animosity. His eyes traced towards Grayson's lifeless body. Perhaps the motive is far removed from revenge, and something lurking beneath the surface beckons forth. He turned with fervor toward the portrait of Lady Marguerite, bathed in an ethereal glow despite the shadows that swirled around it. What if Lady Marguerite, now a creature of legend, whispered secrets through her painted visage? Is it not possible that the painting embodies a truth one would do anything to protect? A tremor rippled through the group, uniting their fear. The air thickened with anticipation, tension interlaced with doubt. I have it now, Poirot asserted, his composure unwavering. An affair that both binds and breeds betrayal. Each of you, a conspirator caught in an intricate cage fashioned from fear and longing. And yet, someone among you remains, unaccounted for. Just as he spoke, Algernon erupted, his voice fraying into urgency. You suggest my culpability, Poirot, yet I harbored no desire to harm my friend. We were like brothers. Poirot's eyes narrowed, piercing deeper into Algernon's protests. Ah, but like brothers can mask deeper sentiments. Subtlety, my friend. Such cunning can spiral forth in the heat of hidden desires. And then came the final twist, a chilling revelation, like a wisp of fog suddenly illuminated in the dim light. I contend, Monsieur Algernon, that your desires are intertwined within the fabric of non-attachment, a mask worn to protect a heart torn between love and fear. The red herring is that your friendship was only a facade. With this thrust of recognition, Poirot unveiled the truth in full, exposing the veiled animosities beneath. You feared Grayson would reveal the affair. You wanted to protect your own heart by silencing the truth. The room erupted in a symphony of gasps, a palpable realization drawn tight across their faces. Each character stood irrevocably implicated, layered beneath a mist of unforeseen lies, emotions swirling as storms raged outside. And so, as the walls of Grimwood Manor tightened their embrace, Poirot offered his conclusion, voice resonating with clarity. Mon ami, we are captive to our own webs of betrayal. Alas, each choice pulls tighter the noose that binds. The dark heart of this tragedy has not merely claimed a life. It has ensnared the very souls before it. With the storm crashing against the stone walls, laughter and anguish reverberated through the corridor, a haunting serenade, each heartbeat echoing a longing for redemption forever lost. Chapter 11. The Final Reveal. A low, dissonant chime from the ancient clock resonated through the dimly lit halls of Grimwood Manor, echoing ominously as the tempest outside roared with malevolence. Shadows flickered against the ornate walls, twisting into sinister visages under the feeble candlelight. Poirot stood, absorbed in a complex tapestry of human emotions, where every heartbeat seemed steeped in treachery and regret. The air was thick with the weight of lingering secrets, each breath a reminder of Lawrence Grayson's unjust demise. The storm had primed the atmosphere for confrontation, wrapping the manor in shrouds of darkness that mingled with suffocating tension. The guests were still here, their faces cast in wan light, a tableau of anxiety. It was a gathering of coiled serpents with Lady Vivian, Algernon, and Maggie, each ensnared in their own narrative of despair. The subtle glint of Lady Vivian's locket caught Poirot's discerning eye, a relic engraved with unknown memories that spoke of loyalty warped by betrayal. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused quietly to himself, pondering the precarious facade each wore. Deftly, Poirot's keen gaze flickered to Lawrence Grayson's lifeless form still sprawled upon the marble floor. Automaimari, testament of violence juxtaposed against the dark elegance of the manor. For him, every detail whispered a secret. The quiver in Lady Vivian's voice, Algernon's restless fidgeting, and the unnatural stillness enveloping Maggie as if she were caught in a web of her own design. These nuances were not mere coincidences. They were threads of a greater narrative waiting to be unraveled. "Let us begin, mes amis," Poirot announced, his voice cloaked in authority, commanding the attention of those gathered. Their eyes darted towards him, mirroring a cacophony of conflicting emotions: fear, anger, and the unyielding facade of innocence. "We stand upon the precipice of revelation. Whichever shadow you deem fit to claim, bear in mind, the light shall expose it." Lady Vivian, elegant yet fragile, straightened her posture and interjected, "Poirot, I assure you, I held nothing but the sincerest admiration for Lawrence. His death is a tragedy I could never fathom." Yet the tremor in her voice betrayed her conviction, and her eyes flitted nervously to the doorway once more, suggesting a longing for escape rather than a heart stripped bare of guilt. "And yet," Poirot countered, "there exists a palpable distance in your words, madame. You speak of admiration, but what of envy? Was it not your ambition that tethered your secrets to Mr. Grayson's knowledge? A painting, perhaps, that held the key to your family's future?" "Enough of these accusations," Algernon interjected vehemently, his voice gravelly with suppressed emotions. "You place the wrath of suspicion upon her, Poirot, when the blade could just as easily point back at you. Have you not, in your own pursuit of truth, overlooked the hidden corners within yourself?" His glinting eyes contained both fear and defiance, echoing unresolved tensions that hinted at deeper animosities. "Ah, Monsieur Algernon," Poirot replied, the corners of his lips curling up in a knowing smile. "True understanding shall never emerge from the shadows of pride. Your discomfort speaks volumes. Yet there lies a greater mastermind amid this web of betrayal." He surveyed Maggie, who clutched her locket so tightly her knuckles grew pale. "Tell me, dear child, what keeps you beholden to this sinister fabric? You claim innocence, yet fear seems to dance just beyond your reach." "I have nothing to hide," Maggie exclaimed, her voice cracking as uncertainty haunted her gaze. "You cannot pin this on me. I loved Lawrence as a brother." "A brother betrayed?" Poirot prodded, watching for the flicker of truth as it bled across her features. "Your very devotion might have woven a narrative far more treacherous than affection. What truths pulsated in the heart between you?" She stammered, seeming fragile against the weight of her own emotions. "Lawrence, he knew things I thought to protect. It was not my secrets that harmed him. It was the weight of the legacy that bound us both." With every word, Poirot felt fragments of a larger puzzle snap into place, but the portrait of Lady Marguerite loomed behind him, a spectral presence that seemed to whisper of harbored fears. In that moment of reverie, a revelation struck him with visceral clarity. A complicity unknowingly rendered under the guise of innocence. "But wait," he halted, addressing them with sudden fervor. "There lies a red herring intertwined in our midst, a distraction that entangles us far deeper than mere interpersonal betrayal." He turned, eyes glimmering. "With insight, what if I told you that a web of deception has spun not merely from your interactions? What if the essence of your desires has masked a far greater truth, a truth lost beneath layers of subterfuge?" He approached Lawrence's body again, musing aloud. "The elements of your lives have forged bonds and animosities. How far would you go to safeguard the deception hidden in your legacy?" At this, Algernon seemed to falter. "Poirot, that is blasphemy. My friendship with Lawrence was like a brotherhood. Who would dare harm someone so close?" Perhaps it was not merely the heart that held animus," Poirot countered, his voice now steady with the keen resonance of impending closure. "The fear of exposure can transform firm friends into fierce foes. In the elevation of hope lies the descent into despair." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to envelop them. And then the final twist emerged, a revelation bursting forth with the force of a tide. "It is perhaps," he suggested, "your concealment of feelings, the connection forged under murky waters, that ignites resentments unexpectedly catastrophic." You, Algernon, coveted what Lawrence possessed. The painting's secrets, tied to love, that knew well where to settle. As his observations sank into the room, surprise danced across the faces of the gathered, their collective breaths held in disbelief at the depth of betrayal. Maggie's eyes widened in horror, her breath hitching as understanding dawned. Her gaze darted between the others, realization flashing like lightning overhead. No, it can't be. Indeed, Poirot finished, the energy in the room shifting, dynamic yet fracturing, a bond clouded by envy, preserved by silence, birthed this tragedy we all carry in our own manner. For Grayson sought to confront the truth, and in that very act of defiance, he became a man trapped. As the storm lashed against the manor like an avenging spirit, a chilling sentiment settled within the air. Shadows shrank back into their corners, leaving only the starkness of revelation lingering. Poirot, standing amidst the turmoil, remarked with the elegance that had become his trademark, "Mon ami, we must mourn what is lost, not solely the life extinguished, but the innocence we have willingly relinquished. Each betrayal, each undisclosed heart has etched irrevocable scars across destinies entwined. The river of betrayal runs deep, swift, and unforgiving." With those words cascading into the silence, the remnants of despair lingered like uninvited guests. The truth had risen from the depths, revealing its haunting face, a poetic jest from the shadows of their own making. In the heart of Grimwood Manor, bonds once thought indissoluble lay shattered, as despair intoxicatingly replayed the symphony of betrayal anew. Chapter 12. The Portrait of Betrayal. In the heart of a tempest, as the night swallowed the whisper of reason, a scream pierced the wind, sharp, agonizing, a cry echoing against the stone edifice of Grimwood Manor. Outside, the storm unleashed its fury, lightning illuminating the forsaken garden where tendrils of ivy clawed at the walls like fingers reaching for salvation. Inside, the air was thick with dread, a confluence of fear and anticipation that stung the senses, wrapping the guests in a suffocating embrace. It was within this haunting tableau that the lifeless figure of Lady Vivian Gresham was discovered, her delicate form lying sprawled upon the grand staircase, a darkened locket clutched in her pale hand, glinting ominously in the flickering candlelight. Hercule Poirot stood at the entrance of the hall, his piercing gaze surveying the chaotic scene with the keen eye of a maestro poised to conduct an ensemble of disarray. "Mon Dieu," he murmured softly, for within this tragedy spoke of deeper wounds, betrayal interwoven with threads of love, jealousy, and ambition. The storm outside was but a mirror to the tempest brewing within those who had once called her friend. As the guests gathered in anxious clusters, their faces drawn tight with shock, Poirot moved with an elegance born from purpose. He knew instinctively that each heartbeat here was a note in a dark symphony orchestrated by shadows of hidden desires and long-held grudges. Among them stood Algernon Rayner, his hand twitching ever so slightly as he gazed in horror at the scene. Once he had adored Lady Vivian, an admiration that had twisted painfully into suffocating envy as he wrestled with the reality that she had never truly looked his way in her shimmering world of ambition. "How could this have happened?" he stammered, voice catching in his throat, a desperate plea that rang hollow. Across the room, Maggie Bloom, her youthful face clouded with dread, clutched the fabric of her dress as if it might anchor her to sanity. The quiet whispers surrounding her were harsh, laden with implications that sparkled like daggers in the dim light. She, who had once seen in Vivianade a sister, now faced the truth that bonds of love could metamorphose into chains of inheritance, one inherited not from blood, but from the treachery hidden in the hearts of those around her. Then, unmistakably poised yet seemingly diminished, stood Lord Alistair Cartwright, a man cloaked in privilege but bound by secrets. He had long believed that beneath the polished veneer of wealth lay a treacherous underbelly, the beautiful facade of loyalty crumbling against the weight of expectation. Rumors flitted like moths around flames. Whispers of an affair with Lady Vivian, and unseen depths of competition for the familial fortune piled upon the pulsating tension in the room. Poirot observed the trio, And with each moment that passed, the feeling of impending revelation tightened around him like a noose. As he engaged each suspect in conversation, the evocative flicker of candlelight played tricks with shadows, casting them into unknown forms, dancing in the periphery of his mind. "My friends," Poirot began, voice smooth as silk yet resonant with authority, "you stand before me not merely as mourners, but as enactors in this tragic play. Tell me, what secrets do you harbor? For within them lies not only explanation, but the key to this dark mystery." Algernon was first to respond, words pouring forth in a tempest of emotion. "I loved her truly, Poirot. How could you think me capable of such malice?" His eyes darted, uneasy. Something stung in his voice. Jealousy? Regret? The noble facade of friendship began to fray, exposing threads of resentment buried deep beneath the surface. "Nay, young man," Poirot countered, his expression earnest yet probing. "Love and jealousy often wear a similar garb. Was it not you who stood to gain should Lady Vivienne falter in her ambitions?" "No," Maggie interjected with fervor. "You cannot accuse him so easily. Algernon may have been envious, but he loved her as a sister." Yet something flickered in her own gaze, an unspoken truth, a protective shield masking guilt. Increasingly intrigued, Poirot shifted his focus to Lady Vivienne's locket, the emblem of their hidden truths. "Ah, mon ami," he mused, stepping forward and reaching for the object. "What stories do you conceal within your gilded embrace? Was this your token of love, or a weapon forged in the crucible of betrayal?" Maggie's eyes widened, and she moved to intervene, her voice trembling with urgency as she exclaimed, "I don't know. It was given by her mother. She treasured it deeply." Yet there, in Maggie's distress, Poirot detected the tremor of a lie, a fear intercalated with a longing hidden just beneath the surface. "Fear not, chérie," he comforted her gently, studying the incongruities unfolding before him. "For in this portrait of betrayal lie the contours of your own heart. What were her secrets that made you recoil, frightened? Would you risk more than mere love for the sake of a legacy?" She faltered, glancing at Algernon, whose composure was unraveling before her eyes, revealing layers of unacknowledged emotions. She began, hesitating, eyes reflecting a waterfall of regret. "She was not who I thought her to be. I loved her, yet she plotted against everything I held dear." Just then, Lord Alistair stepped forward, his voice smooth yet laced with disdain. "And you, Maggie, were not innocent. What of your plan to sabotage her? It is known you harbored great resentment over her inheritance." The accusation hung heavily, reverberating off the stillness that enveloped them. "Such claims, Alistair, are no more than shadows flung against the wall to deter from one's own guilt," Poirot interjected, the thread weaving throughout his familial tapestry now becoming clearer. "The weight of envy, how it binds, how it obscures. Was it not you who turned the other eye while coveting her wealth?" In this storm of accusations, an icy chill wrapped around them, a shroud of uncertainty falling as the truth loomed closer. Poirot could feel it, each piece converging into an elegant, albeit sinister, entirety. At that moment of stillness, a thought flickered, a possibility so treacherous it sent shivers coursing through him. He had overlooked one core emotion, one never before addressed within the tangled web. And then, with a calculated breath, he declared, "A tapestry of lies woven not in singular strands, but in collective tangled threads of revenge. Lady Vivienne, one who sought to popularize her familial legacy, had fallen prey to her own ambitions. Was it her vaulting desire for ascension that beckoned the enmity? Ah, ladies and gentlemen, how easy it is to ensnare ourselves in the portraits we cultivate." The room was still, the air thick with realization and betrayal. The very legacy Vivienne sacrificed everything for became her undoing, leading each of you to a brink where ambition became murder, each desiring her fall. Algernon gasped, recognition dawning with hard clarity. "No, Vivienne was her family." His trembling unspooled into fragments of anguish. hands shaking as the weight of their actions slammed down upon him. Maggie's heart shattered into splinters, comprehension dawning as she stammered, "But she was my sister." With dramatic flourishes that had become his signature, Poirot concluded, "Mon ami, the darkest enmities lie obscured beneath what we wish to believe. The portrait upon which you all gazed was indeed an illusion, a reminder that each betrayal we harbor toward one, another inevitably leads to a canvas soaked in blood. Regrets haunted your souls, yet none knew she was both friend and foe." In the hushed aftermath of despair, Poirot turned, the candlelight capturing the glimmer of cold triumph that stirred within him. "And thus," he murmured softly, "we must mourn not only Lady Vivian, but every fractured hope that remains hidden within our hearts, entangled in the snares of betrayal." As he left the room, a storm still raging outside but sanctuary within, bolstered by the bitter chill of revelation, he cast a final glance over his shoulder, his voice a whisper that lingered in the air. "Beware, mon ami, for within the depths of desire lies the potential for destruction. Be you ever vigilant against the whispers of the heart."